plates and and then you've moved my table. So she's always complaining about all these things. So even if a teenager wanted to say something to the mom or to the dad, they find it very difficult, and they can't speak to the mom. They can't speak to the dad. So this is one of the barriers. So it's important that if you want to have a chat or a conversation with your teenager, you actually just have some moments to chill where you are in a mood that's friendly. You know, I don't know if you realize this. Normally, little kids want to share everything with their parents. And they come to you, they'll tell you what happened at school, what happened at preschool. And half the time, the parent is not even paying attention, is not even listening. But because they are little, they haven't learned to read between the lines. They do not understand emotions at all, that they don't even realize that mom is ignoring me or dad is not paying attention. So they just keep saying it. But then the moment they grow up, then they're now teenagers and they understand that this person isn't paying attention, this person isn't in the conversation. They just stop talking. So this is one of the barriers. You're not listening to them. You're too busy for them. You're moody. You're just not in a friendly enough mood. So it
I actually think I noticed it with my son. For a very long time, I don't know why I thought children don't notice. So, you know, my son will be talking, I'll go, and I'm there checking messages. And I had to have it registered to myself that we are talking moon. They can tell when they're talking to themselves, just as well as I do.
Yeah. So it's important to just give that time. So if you want, sometimes it doesn't always have to be on your terms, because what normally happens is when you're not in the mood, you don't want to be talking. Then now, you then want them to open up, but then they are basing on what has happened in the past. They're just thinking you never listened, so they're not going to talk. And then the other thing here that I put down is, you know, teenagers always say this: does everything have to be a life lesson?
I still say that.
So you know, so sometimes maybe your daughter or your son is just sent you this video, and in this video, it's supposed to be a funny video. Maybe somebody's dancing, but then this person happens to be, maybe they have
not dressed well.
Yeah, not dressed well, and then the conversation moves from then now the child is like they did not even notice that. All they were seeing was the joke. The joke of the
and
whole
whilst
thing.
we're there, Coach Taff, I must also just ask parents, when you get, like you're saying, when your child shows you something on their phone, they didn't say swipe left or right. It's that one thing. I think my father still does it. If I show him something, what do I gallery? They say, we might not talk after you go through my gallery. So I think it's also just to add that, allow them their privacy. Something else tomorrow.
Yeah. Speaking of privacy, I think that's the other thing also. That's a communication barrier, because sometimes teenagers would share something, and then you go on to share with your friends. And what you may not be thinking about is that your friends have got kids who are just the same age with your child. So your friend will go share this thing with their child. And then this child will then talk about it. And then now your teenager is wondering, I mean, I shared this with mom. How come this friend of mine now knows about this? Because the reason why they didn't tell the friend was they wanted some privacy. So they're telling you, thinking they're confiding in you, they're just going to get advice. And then that
you can even start being an example. In another person's family, because your parents went and told them by themselves. Yeah, you can be. So out in society, it's not a good thing.
Speaking of that, you know, you've just reminded me what happened on Saturday. So I was at this church, and then they were parents, and then they were teenagers. So parents were having a discussion. I was having a discussion with the parents, and then the teenagers were having their own discussions. So they came with questions for the parents. And then one of the questions was that, from the teenagers, was that, why do you always compare us with other children? Yeah. So in trying to answer that, there was then one teenager who said, the people that you compare us with, you actually don't know them. You only know like a part of their lives. If you actually knew them,
but it goes with everybody. It goes with everybody. I think it's even as with grown-ups, you find bosses have got a certain image of someone, and you're like, but if you knew this person, you wouldn't even try. Ask me,
and I'll tell you about them. Yeah. So anyway, like I was saying, it's important to keep your children's secret. Don't share them. They will continue talking to you. And then the other thing, teenagers say that you don't want to talk to us online. So I don't know. This happens.
What does that mean? You don't want to talk to us online?
Online, yeah.
Okay.
So generally, parents would say that don't send me messages. I mean, talk to me face to face, that kind of thing. So they don't want to like have that communication. Yeah, because of your generation. And I think you understand this.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same. You know, for us, we've come to understand that there's a way you feel less inhibited when you're like on social media. There are things you can say online that you may find very difficult to say face to face. And I think it's also an advantage. And I'm not saying talk about everything online.
Because talks are tense. There's expression.
Yeah.
Like when I talk to my son, he always thinks I'm shouting, but that's just my tone. So I find it easier to send him a message like, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
And it registers better with him than when I say it in person. Then he thinks I'm cruel at devil.
Yeah,
So,
and I think it's also important because it gives you a bit of time to just digest and try to think about it. Yeah, so you don't react, you then respond. You've had time to actually think about it, and then you respond. And then your response now is your response now is kind of toned down.
There'll be more volume to it as well.
Yeah. So I think it's important. Hard as it may be, and maybe you're not used to it, but I think it's just important to give them that space. Yeah.
In case you're just joining us, thank you so much for making us your station of choice. It is Star FM at the Morning Galaxy and Uniform to the show every single Tuesday morning. We speak to Coach Taff, and this morning we are talking about taking off communication barriers. Also, we are live on the Star FM Facebook page in case you want to catch up with us. And also, you can catch up with the whole session if you just caught up with us now. Coach Taff, as you were.
Yeah, so the other thing is that teenagers are always complaining that you trivialize their issues. So sometimes, sometimes somebody is very concerned. You know, I always give this example. Maybe you've bought them new uniform and they feel like it's too baggy or too big, something like that. And then they try to talk to you about it. You will trivialize it. And then what then happens is that there are certain things that you expect them to open to you about, but in their minds, you trivialize their things, so it's just all the same, and they're not going to say it.
To teenagers, to buttress what you're saying, to teenagers, image matters so much.
Yeah.
It matters so much. My son lost his jersey, and I just felt like he could wear the bigger one. And I noticed that week he was so miserable. And then when we were having a conversation, this was one of the boys had given him a nickname because of the jersey, but I didn't listen to him when he said he doesn't want a big one, like you're saying. So it's very important to really listen to the nitty-gritties because they can just mess up their life entirely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So you know what happens is we judge their matters according to our own adult way of thinking. So let's say there's this issue to do with school uniform, and then there's an issue to do with them not doing so well in school, and they're concerned about how they're performing in math, and they want maybe extra lessons. And then there's this issue about their crashie at school. You're going to trash the crashie issue. You're going to trash the uniform issue and just focus on the extra lesson one. Because to you, that's what's important. That's what's important. But then to them, these three are equally important. So because they told you about their crashie, you trashed it. They told you about the uniform, you trashed it. Now they're thinking, even if I tell mom about the math issue there, she isn't going to like badge because she doesn't listen, because this is how they're reasoning, this is how they're processing the thing in their mind. So it's important to just like listen to all of this. And I do understand that we do have stresses from work and all that, and it may not be possible to always be available and talking to the kids, but maybe once in a while it's just important to have those dates. It doesn't have to be.
Dates are very important.
Yeah, so that you're just talking, you're just having fun, and you're just like listening. And whilst you're there, avoid being the preachy mom. You know how we've because we are adults, we have so much experience. We think we've experienced everything.
Sure they cannot. You don't want them to experience what you've experienced.
So everything that they mention, you've got an experience to it, and then you want to.
Or even the questionnaire, mom, where the Howard school doesn't need to sound like Howard school. It sounds like someone is
because if it's like Howard school, it sounds like so serious. And you're focusing on the academic side, so they're thinking, okay, what did I learn and all that. And you know how it is when you've been in a pressure zone, you come off it, and somebody asks you about it. Your mind doesn't work. You can't just like remember that. Yeah. But if you're asked like, okay, what did you do today? what did you eat during break time and all that, then your mind goes, yeah.
Then you
and
can really
what-
pick out what you want to share and where it's coming from in your heart and mind.
Yeah, and then it becomes easy. And then also teenagers complain about how parents always focus like on the negative. You know, I like to give this example where maybe you've brought a report card and you've got your 9 A's, and then there's the subject where you've got a C. And then after going through like the whole report card, they're like, "Apa C, Baba? Nofana pull up your socks."
No problem. And
And but the 9 A's, you haven't said anything about all those 9 A's. You're just focusing on what I haven't done. And you know, I once had a discussion with parents, and I'd mentioned this, and then someone was saying that, well, tinofunga kuti zvavanogona kudhara vakutogona kudhara, so there's no need to like talk about it. So we need to like focus on where they still need to pull up their socks. But then what we don't realize is that they end up being discouraged, and then where they were doing well, they're no longer putting effort, and they may not even continue to get the good results. So it's important to talk about the good, praise them. You know, as human beings, we've got this emotional bank account. So each time somebody praises you, it's like a deposit into that emotional bank account. Each time somebody says thank you, appreciates you, as a deposit. But then when somebody rebukes you, when somebody criticizes you, it's a withdrawal. And sometimes parents tend to withdraw more than they deposit. So what then happens is that their child's emotional bank account is overdrawn, and then the environment becomes tense. Each time you meet face to face, you're thinking, what's the problem? You know, I remember having such kind of situations with my dad. You know, I would be called, like, what would happen was, the moment he stepped into the dining room, we would all like go away, like go into our rooms and all
I
that.
remember the guy.
And then you were called into the dining room, and before you go there, you're thinking, okay, what did I do wrong? If you ask this,
You're
this is how I'm going
trembling.
to. Yeah, this is how I'm going to defend myself. If he talks about this, this is how I'm going to defend. So you go there, you sit. You're not expecting anything good. You're just waiting to defend yourself. So communication shouldn't be like that. I mean, there should be times where you just talking.
Laugh,
Yeah, just laughing. Just having some fun moments. Like it could be watching maybe a comedy, and then you all laugh at it. Yeah.
So are we saying that are you saying that parents should should be deliberate about the time that they spend kids with, to put away your phone, forget the stresses, and be able to
definitely it has to be deliberate, because with the times that we're living in, if you're not deliberate about it, if you're not intentional, you're going to realize that you will be busy like throughout the whole year, and you've got issues. You've got issues, and you know how sometimes teens and kids in general end up really complaining in the midst of your moods and everything. A work colleague calls or somebody else calls, and then all of a sudden you're into a happy mood, and you're like, askana, hey, and now they're surprised. The moment you drop the phone,
they start to feel like it's them.
Yeah, you're back into your default setting. You're now the serious parent who can't be joked around with. You know, you've just reminded me of I was having a conversation with a teenager at work. So she says that her dad was called to another church to talk about dating. So you know how sometimes certain people are viewed in a certain way, and then youths from another church feel like this is a cool type of a parent, and we need to discuss about this. So her dad was invited to another church to talk about dating and all, and then she went with the dad, and she said, I was surprised to hear how my dad was talking about this whole dating thing, and that it could actually be cool. This is something that we've never like had at home. Like I'd never had conversations. So she says, I never participated, I never said anything. I was just waiting for other people to ask questions. So you know, sometimes we are nice people to other people's children. We are so understanding, and then when it comes to our own, we don't give them as much time, we don't give them as much attention, but they're just the same. And they actually deserve it. These are some of the things that we can do, and these are some of the barriers that if we remove and take them off the way, then we can actually develop better relationships with our children. Because communication is very important, and what we want in communication is honesty. Because sometimes teenagers will not tell the truth because they are afraid of certain reactions. So they anticipate, if I tell them exactly what happened, this is what's going to happen. So they end up lying. And lying is very bad, because this is going to be a habit that they will grow with. They just continue lying. And also because as a parent, you are acting from a premise of lies. It means whatever solution you're thinking about, whatever guidance you're giving, isn't even helpful, because it's not addressing the main issue. You don't understand exactly what's happening. They haven't told you the truth. So it's important at times to give children that psychological safety, where they know they can say anything. They can actually say what they're thinking, and there won't be dire consequences. So you will be able to help them there. Yeah.
I do like that psychological safety. It's unfortunate that time has eaten out, but I would have loved to also just hear on that one, the psychological safety. So just maybe talking points that we went through throughout for those that missed out.
Okay, so we talked about the importance of making time with your children, just having dates so that you talk to them. We talked about not turning everything into a life lesson. Sometimes just laughing when when it's important.
You're really laughing. Wow.
The very things I just thought about like at that time. And then we talked about just paying attention, not being too busy. Like when a child is talking to you, you just try to put off disturbances and make sure that you are giving them attention. Yeah. So those are some of the important things that you can do. Yeah.
And then how do we catch up with you?
So my WhatsApp number is 0773 606 728. 0773 606 728. And if you're a parent of a teenager and you want to be added to our parents platform, you just send your name to that number and I'll send you to